It was my idea.
It was my idea.
I first thought of dance camp. Well, I dreamed
brought
of it.
people to
I
dance
first
camp
dreamed
in
of dance camp.
1995.
I shared this dream.
My vision. We decided we wanted to dance really intensely for a month because we didn't get to do that in our lives. All you really need to do to dance all the time is have a space and the time and get some people together.
And we had a space.
We had the
We
studio.
had the studio.
And we just figured, let's ask a lot of people, and we could have classes and workshops every day. People could rehearse, they could make work. We'll spend sort of a whole month together in this little fishbowl.
I actually remember the conversation very clearly when David Brick called me and said, we're thinking about doing this thing where you'll have to devote the whole month and, not be able to work and just come down here and just take classes and choreograph and stuff.
Everyone had to be able to teach something. Everyone had to be currently making work and performing it professionally or whatever. And that they were, making dance work.
And they said, we're doing a dance festival here. Everyone is teaching and participating. You don't have to pay and you don't get paid. Oh, we had to pay for food. $60 for food was the price per person. And they said they were inviting people from New York, Texas, people they really trusted as choreographers and artists and dancers.
Basically, we invited the world to do it, thinking that we wouldn't get anybody because nobody knew us really.
They knew us.
I took the information home and painstakingly tried to make a choice between Bates, which I'd never attended and heard fabulous things about, and dance camp.
Nicole had saved up all year
Yeah,
to go to
she'd
Bates.
been planning to go. She, sent in her application. She sent in her deposit. She signed up for classes, and at the last minute, she was like, "Okay, I'm going to do dance camp instead of Bates." And we were like, "Yes!"
I remember a quote that something that Andrew said to me, and he said, "If you want to be a dancer, go to Bates. If you want to be an artist, come hang out with us this summer." And he said it very nonchalantly, and I don't think he meant a whole lot by it, but it really pushed me in the direction to stay.
I don't remember what job I had where I knew I'd be able to blow it off for the month, but I did.
And then when people showed up, and there was 11 people sitting there, it's totally true. And it's like here we are, a thing, where before there was nothing, and now we're like a project happening.
Now it's bigger.
But that was the first year. That was how it started. We were
It
just
started
trying to
with a
solve a
dream,
problem.
And then the dream became a reality.
The feeling of dance camp that first year in '95 was one of kind of old friends getting together and different sets of old friends getting together. So people were able to look around and people were being, trusting a lot because they already had these relationships with some people. So they would just kind of extend that level of trust and interaction to other people that they didn't know. So it deepened very quickly.
The first time I was in dance camp, I was going through one of my really regular crises of faith, which is, why am I doing this? And how can I keep going? And being in dance camp the first year just made me realize that I had a lot of knowledge and that knowledge had value to me.
This is very much more personal and very unique to the people involved, that people are all contributing, everybody's contributing, and as teachers as well as students. And there's this great mix of using each other's talent, so it's not coming from above. So I like this sort of grassroots feeling of dance camp.
It marked a transition in my psychic state from being a student to being a teacher, and from being not an amateur dancer, but from being someone that it marked for me a transition into really being a full dancer.
This one, hanging out in Philadelphia. That's what we're doing this month. We're just hanging out in Philadelphia.
Dance camp is a response to a lack of funding and a general frustration with the amount of time most artists spend at their day jobs and the lack of time left over.
We're like a co-op. We're like, what can we as artists do without any funding, without any support?
It seemed like people sort of didn't make work until they had the gig to make the piece for, and we were like, this month is just about making 100 pieces.
I think dance camp really works as what it is, which is like an incredibly like experimental, free environment to try stuff out in and to think about how to make work.
Amanda taught a workshop one day where I think it was a pretty typical repertory kind of workshop, kind of thing I've never done before. Because it was in the context of dance camp, I was like, I'll go with it, man. You know, anywhere else I would have been like, this is not my thing, I can't do it, this is stupid. She's doing movement that is too hard for me, and she's teaching it too quickly for me. But I just had this spirit of like, why not? And because of that, I just had this great experience doing this like whacked out, really hard dance and choreography that I would never otherwise have been able to do. And I didn't do it great or anything, but I did it. And it was fun. It was totally fun. Now, I wouldn't want a whole month of that, you know, but a little flavor of that, I was like, check it out, you know.
A lot of us during the rest of the year are concerned with our careers and generating pieces that will receive some kind of critical acclaim or at least recognition from other dance makers. And this is an opportunity for us to come together and be more silly, try things that are more risky, try new things that we have very little skills doing.
When I'm walking, I strut myself, and I'm so strung out.
You usually do learn more when you're uncomfortable in a situation.
I really prefer seeing a performance where someone takes a personal risk. Whatever's a personal risk for them, you can tell, because there's a charge to it.
I think that when you're out there in the world trying to make your own work and you're being a student and you're teaching once in a blue moon or whatever, it's hard to value yourself and value your role in the dialogue of dance. And I think that dance camp, you know, it's a place where people come together with a lot of great information.
Release it, smack it.
We really believe in collaboration. We're like, we want to collaborate with more people. We want to like learn the skills that some other folks got, some other artists. What are they doing? What can they come in and teach me? What can I teach them?
It's a very powerful model for the way that artists work together.
All of us bringing our stuff to the table and spreading it out and looking at it and taking from it what we want.
The whole idea of dance camp is that it's about investigation. That's why, I mean, this is a great group of people to teach.
What I get out of teaching dancing is I get to figure out for myself what I think is important in dance. I'm very interested in areas of discovery that teach us more about ourselves and about our bodies, but I also am really interested in dance as art. And when I'm teaching, I'm always aware that dance is a performance form. So when I make up class material, I'm looking at it as a way to learn which skills I think are kind of important to do the sort of movement that I'm interested in. But I also am choreographing. Like, I get to see people doing movement in, you know, that I've made up in space and look at it as choreography and look at it as an art element.
Most exciting for me is trying to find new ways of working. Not just new, but trying to go deeper into the ways that movement means things. And a lot of times I feel like we're really, in some ways, we're hampered by traditional dance technique and traditional dance background, which has a stylized range of movements that, you know, you're supposed to communicate things in this stylized form. That way ways that bodies move that I call dance are much more infinite than that. And it's sort of been, in some ways, has been broken down simplistically into like technical dance movement and pedestrian movement. And I think that exploring the overlap between those things, you know, like taking that technical dance, pedestrian split and saying, actually, there's something a lot more complex in that. You can have very stylized minimal movement that's not big sweeping Graham technique or Taylor technique or Cunningham technique or ballet technique. But it's not pedestrian either. It's not me eating a bowl of cereal or walking down the street. And how can I use the body and the ways people move and the ways that I can train myself to move that begin to layer up meaning. And it's a very exploratory process. I don't know if this is going to yield brilliant insight on making meaning or not. We don't know the answers. But we're breaking out of the form of like, I got to lift my leg really high in order to make meaning. Dance camp is definitely about the moment, you know, a pure moment of investigation, and really just like throwing out anything I've assumed and just like reaching for new knowledge.
I remember being really struck with the notion that, like, God, something really like brilliant and exciting is being made here every day, or something really disastrous and I'm learning from it.
I still feel like I don't quite get if everyone's working on a piece. I know there's a performance at the end, but there's a lot going on. So I expected, I guess, a little less going on, but it's cool.
Today I taught the first day of the class in improvisation. I use the class time as a way of exploring different strategies for improvisation. Today we were working on opening senses other than sight. People were working with eyes closed a lot today, so that people weren't getting those visual cues and like doing things that they would normally do, just making them open up their hearing and smelling and tactile senses so that they could get those kinds of cues that are coming in, that kind of input that's coming in all the time, and seeing how that influences choices. I sent them out into the street, and they each had a half hour of one person being sighted and one person being unsighted, and they had the task of leading the person through different environments. They had to go indoors at least once. We focus so much on like what we see that we tend to close down other senses, and we use sight to navigate our way through. And like the smallest like sort of like dip in a curb can like really throw people's balance. Whereas if they saw it, they would step on it and nothing would happen. Or going from the dark building out into bright sunlight, you would never notice if you were just running out the building. You would just sort of not notice that your whole body reacts to that, or traffic noises or things like that.
I really liked it when we were just doing the long walking.
You like the long walk?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I just couldn't stop, Robert. I wanted to show you more and more and more things. I just couldn't stop. It was time for us to get back to our little meeting place, and I was like dying. I was like, no, I have to take me to the cigar shop.
I think it's really important for dancers, even dancers who ultimately want to choreograph set pieces, to really learn how to improvise. Because improvisation is sort of an excellent way of finding really personal source material.
I had very little fear. you know? I had very little fear. I would have walked right out into, you know, clearly I would have walked right out into traffic or whatever, you know? But if physically exploring things, I wasn't afraid of, except for the pine tree.
So even if you later choose to set it and pick and edit, it is a really important skill for dancers to have. I mean, in my own work, I tend not to set work, and I tend to use improvisation in the final product as well. But I think even like for all dancers, it's just sort of in terms of accessing like the stuff that's really inside. Improvisation is like that's the only way I can think of getting into that and just finding different strategies for doing that is really important for dancers as artists, for dancers who really want to make dances. You know.
I am nervous and I hope I do well. I've got the teacher of the whole class in my hand, so he's got to make it, got to survive. I wonder what he wants, terror or trust. My pedestrian turns into a person and a plaything. Sometimes I'm walking with my charge, my friend, my teacher, Ishmael.
A lot of dance composition is taught that way, taught from what I think ass backwards. That they teach the formal making, the formal structures before they actually teach the source of it.
I think pieces of music are often like pancakes. You have to throw the first batch of ideas you have about how to respond away. Of ragtime music, great music, perfect structure for dances, creates all kinds of like rhythmic and textural structures. But the first time you put it on, and everybody starts to do stuff like this, you know, because instead of listening to the music in this way you would look at a dance in formal terms, they just sort of peel the image off it. And what I'm saying is peel the image off it, throw that away, and then use the inherent formal properties of music. Which isn't to say that those other ideas aren't going to inform your dance, of course they're going to. But like you say, if you go for them first, you get off on the wrong foot. And everything else you do through the whole dance just has to do with your leotard and the fact that the bottoms of your feet were dirty or something. You know, how are we going to get past that? I challenge you many times today with pieces of music that were very evocative of a certain style or something like that in order to see, you know, in order to do this work.
I think anyone can be a set dancer. But not anyone, you have to start young and you have to have good teachers, and then being a talented performer is another thing. But anyone can learn a dance technique, but improvisation to me is like a higher level of the form. It's an absolute, like jazz musicians, you know. our improvisational work is what makes us intellectual instead of the people that dance on casino boats or on Broadway.
Andrew! Emily!
Robert!
Leah!
5, 6, 7, 8.
Tap has a bad reputation for being like a show dance form, but it's actually one of the most virtuosic dance forms, and it has a strong improvisational element. Rhythm tap, what Savion Glover does, and Greg Hines and these people who do this form, it's an improvisational form. And most of what you see at like Miss Julie's School of Ballet or on Broadway is like a set choreography, just doing the moves kind of tap form, but there's another whole level of it. Most modern dancers are terrible at tap. Like they have unbelievably complex rhythms in their body, but when it comes to isolating the feet and the different parts of the feet and making specific sounds and keeping really good rhythm and making complex rhythm with the feet, it's really fucking hard, you know? So that, I think a lot of people were involved in the tap piece just because it was fun to learn that, a little bit of that technique.
When you put your other heel down, you want to lift a little bit on the other foot so that you can be ready to pull that one back, okay? Just a little bit, not anything like that. Just enough so that you can pull. And we'll do them in place. Yes, and drop your heel. Drop the heel. Yes? You don't want to exaggerate this toe lift. Yes, is that true? Right. No, no. I'm just so afraid my caps are going to fall off. Very nice. Well, that's what we're doing. Go along with someone that you think you're compatible with at the same level, and then you're each going to put in 16 counts. Okay? You're going to make little combinations. Practice your duets and quartets because we're going to put them together and we'll finish the piece tomorrow. Okay, who would like to get first? I will.
Much better.
Yes.
You like that from the beginning?
I like that.
Start?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
so let's
So
practice that.
together.
That's gonna be.
Yeah.
Wait, it's a 4 and a 4, or
Okay, yeah.
ready
7, 8.
to go and 1.
Right.
A lot of times at dance camp, you get little pieces of American dance culture
Yeah.
that we're actually really outside of, but people will stick in a little piece of that, and it's interesting to feel the tension of interacting with that. People like that. They like to try to learn a jazz piece, because what they're doing is spending all day doing like these strange Butoh contortions. And so to get on stage and be like, is an interesting interaction in the dance culture.
So it really allows a playfulness of spirit to do anything from a tap jazz dance spoof to everything but the kitchen sink vision, and just try it, just push it out and try it. Like it's playful. It's not deadly serious about oneself and the greatness of, you know, your art with a capital A.
This year I designed a class about working with film images, working with movies, movement from movies. I call it Movement. And what I was interested in is getting movement imagery, getting sort of raw material from movies as a way of feeding in all kinds of new material into our dance making. I've done some work with David Gammons and other people using still images as inspirations for movement, and some of the rest of you probably know as well. And there's a lot of rich material there, but of course what's lacking is dynamic and changes and movement style. And unfortunately I feel like we often end up inserting our own little habits into that gap. And what I think this can do is really separate you from your habits as a mover and maybe as a choreographer as well. So I really want to work on trying to learn it very faithfully. At first it might be a little boring and painstaking, but I really want to work on learning the movement and the spacing very faithfully.
Here we are taking a small box that has close-ups, fades, cuts, pans, and asking me to translate that.
I think one thing in staging we have to keep in mind, though, is that the camera shifts during this. So the perspective of the audience shifts. So either we have to direct the audience to move, or we have to our relationships. Like you may be walking this way and the camera's panning, and you go from the side, the person's facing the front. So that person would have to walk and also like turn their relationship.
I was also interested in using this sort of cinematic perspective as a way of exploding out our ideas about space in dance. We often see it as sort of a grid, laid out on the floor, and there's diagonals and various points. Whereas in movies, space is constantly appearing and disappearing, and your eye is being guided in close-ups and far shots. You're constantly seeing space materialize and then seeing it in detail and then seeing it again far away. Space is sort of infinite and always changing. And I wanted that perspective, even though we can't do all of the tricks. I think that perspective opens up a lot of possibilities for use of space. There was a group working on a very elegant scene from Fellini's 8½, where people are crossing, shaking hands, and moving through the scene. The camera stays almost perfectly still. And the timing is just sort of gorgeous. It's a subtlety of choreography that we don't often get. We're often lining people up and moving them along long passages through space in big circles. And this had just sort of a magic that's hard to get sometimes in the studio.
He asked us to take a specific scene that had a lot of jump cuts and long shots and close-ups, and make choices of how to stage that.
We had another group learning a scene from the movie The Breakfast Club, which had a lot more sort of posturing and style of movement and personality.
Okay, and then what happens? Judge. And he takes something. And then he takes it.
You could do it going along this way.
Yeah, maybe you come down by the table, wend your way that way as though that's off stage, touch all that shit on the table with the mirror and stuff, and then enter the scene. She's the director.
I don't even really think of myself as teaching very much, as much as
just letting people explore an idea. And I'm sort of fascinated because I get to see really smart people explore an idea that I care about. So it's kind of the opposite of teaching. Like
Well,
you're teaching me.
Have you ever used a movie before?
No.
No.
But I did today. We tried to reproduce the Zapruder film of the Kennedy assassination. That very sort of jagged Super 8 movie of Kennedy being shot. And we may use it for this piece we're working on, tentatively called Story of a Panic, which is about moments of panic and rupture where things break down. And your throat. Yeah, now the thing is, of course, we can't move like this, can we? Does that hurt? I'm sorry.
I need to pick up my feet.
Woo!
This is so good.
Mostly I'm interested in what's provoked in us. I think in trying to solve those problems, the strategies we come up with I think are very interesting and exciting. I'm not that interested in actually reproducing a movie or a scene from a movie, but the techniques we can develop to solve that question, I think we can apply in our own work to situations where they would work and be very effective.
David Gammon's workshop, he's a theater director. He comes from a really different angle, and he's interested in doing movement-based theater, but he comes at it from not a choreographer, dance training background. He comes at it from this idea of image and this idea of stories and character and kinds of people.
My initial idea came from this book of photographs by Diane Arbus that she shot late in her life at a home for mentally retarded patients in New Jersey. In terms of using this as source material for creating movement ideas, there's obviously a lot of directions that you can go in. They suggest a lot of different things. Some of them very specifically suggest movement. Some of them are more suggestive of character, atmosphere. So there's a lot of different ways that one can approach these images. For instance, a good place to start is trying to actually replicate what's going on in the image. With specific attention to detail, really try to capture the physical, what's going on with the body in the frame. From there, you might try to set up a sequence of movement that either starts from that pose, that tableau, and evolves from there, or create a sequence of movement that has that tableau as the result of it. Thinking about trying to respond in some movement way to something as abstract as what you perceive as the emotional content of the image. Is it an image that's about joy? I mean, is she having, just the time of her life rolling in the grass? So that you're not trying to mirror the image at all, but trying to suss out what might be emotionally at the heart of the image.
If I try to take on the body language of an 11-year-old retarded girl, that seems sort of, bizarre, but I don't know until I look at it. There was a quality of innocence and sadness that existed in these bodies, and I don't think I really understood that right away. Does that innocence and sadness come across if I'm just mimicking, or is there a different way to imitate that picture that doesn't look exactly like the picture, but gets more true to what that innocence and sadness would look like on my body and in my face?
What I want to do now is continue using text stuff, and I've selected some passages from the biography of Diane Arbus that are just some interesting situations that provide possibilities for movement, activity, action, dialogue.
So,
I know.
What you want to do is read your passage or your snippets and just start to work. You can start in a very literal way, like if you have a dialogue between the two of you, you might practice the dialogue, or you may move away from it and just respond to something in the situation that's interesting to you. You should really keep your mind and your imagination open.
Diane ate nothing, just watched me eat.
Stared at me without saying anything.
Which was a bit disconcerting.
Finally, I asked,
"What's the matter?"
And she answered, "You're eating."
And I said, "Well, sure, what do you expect I'd be doing?"
"You just served me breakfast."
And she answered,
"Most of them don't eat."
"Oh, so you think it was intentional that she served them something normal, but was like still commenting on it?"
I think it's intentional for her to want some kind of reaction from her guest.
I think you should do your whole, like a large portion of the
I'll do a whole shtick.
Do your whole, I was gonna say shtick.
I'll do my dance.
While I'm here.
I think that's simple.
Yeah.
And perfect.
Yeah, I think so.
Now, should we have the same expression, or should you be scrutinizing me and me kind of just chilling out? Yeah. So I don't look at you the same way as you look at me. I can kind of do whatever, and you know, I would probably look at the pictures you had on the wall or whatever. Right. Like. Yes. That's really corny. What'd you expect? Most of them don't eat.
I think I should drop it there and just say, or should I say it in that voice, you think?
Most of them don't eat.
I mean, I love the image of you writing on my hand.
Well, my thought was to be here.
What do you expect?
Most people don't eat it.
What did I call you? Moon. I called you Moon.
Making sense is a later step in the choreographic process, and it's not only strange but actually difficult, like sort of emotionally difficult, you know, that it's hard to work with, and you're given the freedom and pushed at the same time into working with it. And what comes out of that interaction is very interesting and beautiful. It hasn't been formed into a piece. It hasn't attempted to be something that communicates with an audience that makes sense over time. That comes much later.
It's like I feel like you allow yourself to follow your imagination, your like things that interest you, and just trust that, you know, connections will come.
It is an act of faith, of knowing in your heart that there's a reason why you do what you do, and you put things together the way that they are supposed to go. and it reveals itself. That's really for me, the mystical, beautiful part, is that what it's really about and what's really interesting will reveal itself once you start working.
Stuff you bring in already has all the weight of your interest, you know, in it. Like, it's not just random. It's not like you just found something that morning, but it's like, you know, and you can feel that, and it's so great. So great. It makes me want to, like, you know, go back to all the things that I really love, but, you know, always kind of deny because I have to do my work. And like go back and like, you know, like that is, you know, I can pull that right into my work.
This is...
Suck it up!
Yeah, that's right, campers. Strap on the feedbacks.
I think the best thing about dance camp is the feeling that it invokes in me that it's us that is doing this, that is making it happen. With teaching and taking the classes and doing workshops with each other, it's just us doing it, which is so great.
People have to be generous and strong-willed and willing to work hard for their own and the group's benefit. People have to be able to speak up, like speak their minds in a group where there's a lot of people that are really good at that and some people who aren't, because it's sort of ruled by consensus, but what that often means is whoever's really talking the loudest or talking the most.
I was not as organized as I hoped
You have to be really willing to work hard. And everyone here is. And it's just like phenomenal the amount of work that goes into it. And it's all totally worth it, but it is a lot of work. Like a week or two ago, I was like taking out bag after bag of trash that was just filled with like maggots and rotting grossness, you know? And I was just like, you know, that was one of those crabby moments where you're just like, this is such a fucking drag, you know? Anyone who's gonna do dance camp has to be willing to take out bags of rotting trash. And not have to be asked, you know, and just have this sort of like antenna about what kind of work needs to be done and do it, you know?
Stop it, let me
Maury's doing me a great favor. She is washing the
My
dishes
name's
off.
like up on the board.
Maury's just doing her job, and I am letting her do her job.
Communal things that's great about dance camp that we eat lunch together, and it's one of the only times that I've actually.
I'm Kelly Donovan. This is Aggie Postman and Meg Fry, and the three of us dance together in New York City and also here in Philly at dance camp. And I have been at dance camp for 3 years. This is my 3rd year.
Meg.
This is my 4th year. This is my 2nd year. And we have this phrase that we'll be working on tonight in our rehearsal. That's from a dance called Mr. Moon. No, it's not Mr. Moon. It's called 4 Loops. And it's a partnering phrase that we created based on a set of directives that I had written down that we tried to follow as strictly as possible.
Wait, this is front, and this is where we start?
Yeah, just like Mr. Moon. Oh, you're totally right. Descriptions like, now you have to go under Kelly, but over Meg. You know, and
Now Aggie pulls Meg
and sits on Kelly. In the work that I do, I'm very interested in sound, and music in particular, but I've sort of hit a dead end with using pre-recorded music. What we're doing now is taking the same phrase and trying to match it with, very specifically, Mickey Mousing, trying to catch every little accent of this sports broadcast that just keeps going and going and going.
No longer in restraints, and they moved him with a to a special unit. Roads and cargo sources sound the fifth Pirates and Rockies no scores up in the first Peter scored 8 against General Kyle, who is 7-12. Mike Tyson just.
There's a little bit of a narrative connotation that's fun to pick up. When we're working with a broadcast, every once in a while we'll hit an accent right when the speaker is hitting some kind of accent, and so the viewer will derive some kind of meaning from the juxtapositions of the movement with the text.
And sometimes we notice it, and it's kind of funny.
Right. Another thing I want to do, we pick Aggie up here.
Yeah.
She's Wendell Alexis, okay? And
She's Wendell Alexis.
Who's some guy in the U.S. basketball team playing in Greece. And he does a little, Wendell Alexis, you came from Syracuse, I want to hold you out there as Wendell Alexis.
All right.
And we'll be looking at her. And this is your little blurb story.
Okay. And then on the Mike Tyson part, I'm going to bite off your ear. Okay?
Kyle, who is 7'12". Mike Tyson testified before the Jersey's athletic control board in Trenton today to try to get his boxing license reinstated.
Yeah, so I thought this would be a great opportunity for us to come to dance camp and to have a chance to really focus our energies on dancing, and which we don't get to do in New York, because even when we rehearse, we're at work and kind of running in, and we have to rent space, and it's more hectic.
Yeah.
So here we're more focused, and I thought it would be a great place for us to just continue this work and to kind of hone in on it even more.
And here we're really committed to dancing and creating and coming up and experimenting, coming up with new ideas. Whereas when we're in New York, often we're just coming out of work and we're unfocused, out of it. But here, everybody is really into it, and there's a whole atmosphere and a vibe of creating and trying new things. And we feel like
We have showings every couple of weeks, and we show what we've been working on in rehearsal, or if someone came up with something they really liked in a workshop, they might share that.
In its very basic form, we're matching the two together, and the three of us are trying to embody the radio broadcast both as music and consciously embody some of the things that are going on, but we have to still do the phrase, so we're using our consciousness to try to embody the sports cast.
5 innings in the books now at Shea Stadium tonight for the Mets and the Padres. Game 2 of their series. Mets have just added another run. They have a 3-0 lead right now in San Diego. Mets scoring in the first. John Olsen. So we try to go out there and win as many games as we can, and we're going to the first right now in the season where we really go into places and want to get hurt. And, winning the first game of the series always helps. In Trenton today, to try to get his boxing license reinstated in the state. Sometimes very angry and frustrated as he testified at one point using an expletive. More on the story coming up here on 10-10 Wins. And the World Championship tonight for the Major League leaders. Mets lead San Diego 3-6. Right now, 10-10 Wins Sports. The news watch never stops. This is 10-10 Wins.
The only thing I really thought of was that I'd like to see more determined, but deadpan expressions. And
I was noticing your heads and how they could really be a part of the play of the end of the movement. Like I saw, I don't know, there's cautiously and wins, where 2 times when you did a turn into the run.
And I thought maybe you could build it up even more with the focus and the energy and the intention, so that by the end, like you're everything about you, not just the size of the movement, but the size of the intention and the size of the connection is huge. That was all.
One thing that I think might have been a mistake that I really liked was when you missed, but it was on the word frustrated.
Yeah.
And I think that's a nice thing to keep.
Yeah,
Your
it was.
face,
We were really frustrated
too. You couldn't. And I've seen that motion or that partnering movement in the dance so many times that I know you can do it. I know what you're trying to do. So it's frustrating that as you get faster, maybe it's harder, and you didn't get it.
Everyone's
doing. It's good to say things that are contradictory.
I didn't say them because I felt so out of place. Like,
Did you?
I'm just learning how to do dance camp feedback. Like, I don't know what the rules are and what the strategies are, but I think I'm more critical.
Yeah, agreement isn't necessarily I mean, if I'd heard a bunch of feedback that was similar, I'd really want to hear different feedback.
Yeah. You get that 2 opposing directions. You're like, well, they seem to know what they were talking about, but so did they.
Right. And then once you've made more dances, you can sort that stuff out, I think, and you can take what seems to fit in with what you're working on.
Well, it's a good hard lesson to learn, though, too, that you're not going to please everybody, and you've got to make your own piece.
By the time it came all the way around to me in the circle, I really felt obligated to say something positive, and I didn't have anything positive to say, really. So I need to just do this a couple more times because I haven't been in all the group things that you've been in to sort of learn this. But I discover now, after a couple weeks have gone by, that that seems to be the vibe, that everybody backs each other up, which is important. But I'm not sure that that's the only way to do it.
I remember the first time I did dance camp, one of the things I walked away with was, wow, you know, I felt like I could just go and make anything. The work wasn't so precious, and I think that because of that support, it becomes that way, and I think that's good.
Did you think automatically because it was supported, therefore it was a good dance?
No.
Okay,
No.
well that's good.
No.
You know, and even with me on different projects, I'll make a whole thing and put it on stage, and then a year later I'll go, oh my God, what a terrible dance, because I didn't have that kind of input into it and breaking it down and editing it. I mean, so I think both are valuable. But.
Yeah.
Okay, well I'll be more brave next time then. Yeah. You know, and even with me on different projects, I'll make a whole thing and put it on stage, and then a year later I'll go, oh my God, what a terrible dance, because I didn't have that kind of input into it and breaking it down and editing it. I mean, so I think both are valuable. But.
Yeah.
Okay, well I'll be more brave next time then.
Yeah.
A lot of the pieces moving from photographs, using photographs as images to work from, and memory, and sort of common, or separate memories of a common thing, kind of.
And the name of the piece is a memory in 2 parts.
A memory in 2 parts?
Possibly a greenish memory and 2 yellowy parts. Emily?
I love the thing of like that this is time passing and that you guys are different people within that conceit of like left to right, little frozen moments and whatever. And I could have seen more of that. I thought it was interesting.
I also would have liked to see the little pictures set up longer. I almost felt like it needed to be a little bit longer to really establish that section. I don't know. Good luck with whatever you're doing. It was really fun to watch. I'm excited to see the rest.
Really loved was this when you were standing right in front of each other. There was this fierce energy going on. There was one moment when you went like this, and then you went like this, and there was also some of that when you were standing front to back, and there was something really intense about that, and that it quickly went away. Seemed like, I don't know, that there was something there worth exploring. Like
right after that, you both went into
or something.
your own movement phrases, and right away they both had these two separate rhythms that were really, really clear, and it was really great. I loved it. But then, like, it lasted for a while, but then for me it got muddy because the rhythm became a little bit unclear, and I think also your space, I wasn't sure where you guys were going.
Another problem I think with the way we give feedback and showings is that it becomes a way to sort of air your aesthetic, so that when it's your turn to give feedback to the choreographer, you're talking in front of all these other people, and I think people start to be kind of ego-driven about it, because everyone else is listening. I mean, not in a bad way or in a malicious way or something, but there's this sense that, like, you know, everyone else is listening, so I'm going to say something that I want other people to hear me saying, and it becomes less about the work.
I thought the opening image was great, and again, I could have seen it a little bit longer, because even if it's just a shape first for a while, and then it becomes like infused with people. Like, I liked it. It was very strong. I thought that it was fun. If you're just waving and Chris is looking over the back, then if somebody else said this, that to put two people, maybe Nicole said it, or something, put two people in the same photograph.
Right.
That's a good idea.
Very, very.
Because
I'm thinking about that. Actually, Chris had that thought.
It inspires us to think of it as
Like, Andrew stood up after our last showings and said something along the lines of, you know, let's keep in mind that you want to give feedback that you would want to hear if it was your piece and it would help you working on the piece, as opposed to, like, I paid $15 for this and I'm going to frame my opinion about it, God damn it, as something about me.
I love all the changes and sort of the wide open sense of possibility between the two of you, and the sense that somehow your interactions are defined between the two of you, but the ways they manifest is so unpredictable and exciting, and we never know quite where they're going next. But I do, part of what I would want, and this is, I think, more towards my taste, is that all these crazy ingredients come in, but that somehow at the end, like, the cake does come together. And there's something at the end that I start to pick up, so that it's not just a pile, but by the end it's discernible that in fact there were all these correspondences or connections, or there was a progression or a journey, or there an evolution or a dissolution or whatever, rather than just a heap of stuff. Though I love the heap as well.
There's a little bit of like a shift that I think we could all work on. And I think if people talked one-on-one about the pieces they were working on, it might help that, so that people got less involved in, like, you know,
for drinks, and I told everybody that I was scared about my life after dance camp, what I'm going to be doing, and how this is going to affect my life in New York. I know I need to bring this information into my company. I have to bring this information that I have all this stuff, all these different ideas of making material and putting it together, and concepts of time and space and performance qualities. And I don't have a tactic as to how I'm going to do this. I don't know how it's going to appear in my work, but I know it'll be filtering.
But for us who have like fought to make this our life at great expense, you know, like, we need it to be something that feeds us during that time to a new level, because we're still carving out this incredibly precious month.
Dance, in the way that most people think of dance, doesn't matter to me. I don't care much about dance technique. I don't care much about movement from dance classes or techniques. And I think in dance camp you see a lot of movement that's not from those techniques. But I feel like if you can really be precise about finding the right movement, you have to go to these other sources. You have to challenge yourself. You have to push yourself out of dancing and into other ways of moving and experiencing movement.
We're young at what we're doing, and there's a million ways to do things, and that it's really interesting to keep investigating how dances can get made, and like from what part of their life or their brain or your curiosity they come from, which I think is unique to dance camp, because we were talking about this, I think, in one of our work groups, that in some way in the arts, like the only way to move ahead is to like carve out a niche and a personal style that you're known for. That rather than get like, this is what I do and get really excited about it and keep doing the same thing, which in some way would be beneficial, I feel like there's like a really conscious effort to try and go a little deeper than that and keep investigating like why and how over and over again, and that's part of your process. Like always, the possibility of undoing your past process and trying something new.
People were repeating movements, repeating their own movements and repeating the movements that other people were doing, but not in a perfect unison, not in a perfect unison of time or movement. They were repeating, and they were themselves. They were different. They were a group of individuals. They were so unified, and they were so distinct at the same time. And that's another thing I want.